Hi, I'm Dave.
And I'm Tyler.
And this is the Capcom Show. Hello, everyone.
Hello. Today we're going to be going over, or at least for this month's episode, we're going to be going over the topic of economics and currency. It's pretty much, we figured that currency, even though it's kind of separate from economics, they all eventually tie into one another because currency is something that, in this current state-led society that we have, it's very real, and we want to. I feel like it'd do nothing if we just sit here describing economics. You could fucking Google search that and figure that out. So I feel like there'd be more of an actual discussion if we kind of like did something where we described the currency and just how each economic system could work without a state. So,
or at least explain why in their truest form it would be a stateless society.
Yeah. So what we have written down right now is mostly to define the systems. I don't know if you want to go first with this or.
Okay, so I'm an ANCAP that I still define capitalism as being private ownership of a means of production. I do not take the stance that it's synonymous with free markets or voluntary exchange. I understand people who try to use that as their definition. I just find, in that case, I understand they want to make it synonymous, but I feel like it's at least slightly disingenuous. So I take the traditional stance of private ownership of a means of production. That's what capitalism is. And you know, if you want to, if you're going to say you believe in voluntary exchange and free markets, well, then just say that and then don't use the word capitalism.
Yeah, that makes sense. First and foremost, there's fucking socialism is it's pretty much entirely encompasses the left. And of course, when I say this, I mean the left is a very vast political compass, I guess.
I would agree.
Spectrum.
Yes, there's a lot of different stances within the left. More so than the right, I would say.
So pretty much, socialism in a nutshell is not private. I just had my brain decided like,
oh no,
haha, gotcha,
sucker. We're done here.
Gotcha. Episode over. Have fun, guys. No, it's I believe that it's worker owned means of production, meaning you get like what you put in, you get out of your, what you put in for your labor, you get out of your labor. So, everyone, mostly, I believe specifically in syndicalism, which is, which could actually work, again, in any kind of society, either capitalist or socialist. But it's the worker means of production are owned democratically, which is most notably used in unions. UAW, IWW, UFCW, which is a fucking shit show, but I guess it's a union, so Teamsters and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And pretty much what it is it's the idea that workers get to democratically vote for their like CEO of their corporation or their company, and it's everything is consensual, everything is voluntarily, and it affects everyone in any kind of company. So it's very free. It's the idea of voluntarism, just in the ideas of a company ran thing where everyone has their consent in how the company goes. Because at the end of the day, it's practically everyone's paycheck,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it's there. The idea of it being equal, like I see a lot with the straw manning of, everything must be equal, and that's why it has to be a status thing.
Well, I mean, it also depends. People conflate different forms of equality.
Yeah.
And that's the key thing. Like, I believe that there's only like one form of equality between all human beings, is that they're equal in their rights, and I don't believe anything else is naturally equal.
I believe not in equality but equity. it means everything is subjectively equal. Which means it's pretty much the same thing. It's the only difference is if you it's very notably, especially with dealing with mostly anti-fascist rhetoric, where it's like I mentioned, I think I mentioned, I don't know, it was an hour and 15 minutes long a current events episode this month. So which just go listen to it. We were having a blast doing that. But where it's all, I hate this. It's late at night. I'm getting tired, and I lost my train of thought there. It's all oh yeah, no. It's the idea of inciting violence is especially against like minority groups should be land you with the freedom of consequence, you know.
So you're tying this back to the freedom of speech thing.
Yeah, freedom of speech. But pretty much again, that's equity, you know. If your ideology, if your existence is one of hatred, is one that in order for you to live happily, you have to forcibly knock out existence of, you know,
other
groups
humans.
of especially demographics. I believe that, you know, you should be critiqued and especially, you know, gone after for such beliefs because they're asinine. And I know, especially myself, I haven't really studied a lot of Mao, but actually, you know what, I'm gonna backburn that one because we do have a plan on talking about taxes and rent sometime in this episode. But I will like to, you know, remember to keep that around.
But going back to the economic system.
Yeah, going back to the economic system, socialism in its purest form is literally just the workers own the means of production.
Okay.
And that's pretty much the basics of it.
So maybe, I guess it'd be good to differentiate between socialism and communism. Yeah. I mean, sometimes they're interchangeable, but as from my understanding, there is slight differences at least between them.
Communism is the complete ownership of everything by the working class. It's like, I guess the best example would be Bernie Sanders everyone knows Bernie Sanders is a socialist. That's an easy comparison to make. He's an obvious socialist, but he's not a communist.
In terms of working ownership?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. He's not a communist though, because he's not advocating for an overthrow of the ruling rich elite. He's not advocating. Well, he's not openly advocating about that.
At least not openly, yeah.
Yeah, you openly advocate about that in Capitol Hill these days, you're still going to get fucking like, okay, this guy, out, Clinton, do your thing.
Get suicided.
Oh no, 2 gunshot wounds to the back of the head. Such demons.
Hello, suicide hotline. I'd like to place an order.
Pretty much.
One Bernie Sanders, please.
One Bernie Sanders. Even though he is an imperialist, but that's, you know, here or there. That's completely atypical to our discussion. A communist would be more like Che Guevara, where he believed that billionaires shouldn't exist. That's pretty much the most basic term, and the idea of that is it's not one of exact violence, because, you know, billionaires aren't burned, I guess I should say. Like, you know, you get ethnic groups, they're burned. They don't have a choice in the matter, you know what I mean? Whereas you can choose to be a billionaire, you know, you can choose to be a cop, you can choose to be, you know, you can choose to accumulate wealth and steal wealth off of labor of other people. But it doesn't mean that you have to die for it, you know.
Is that what you mean by burn? I was like, not understanding.
Burn.
B-O-R-N? I thought you were saying B-U-R-N. I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Yeah, there's fucking the English language is such a wonderful thing, especially with accents involved.
Oh my gosh, I can't ever understand people's accents.
Accents are always a fun thing.
Anyway, so yeah, you can be born into wealth.
You can be born into it. And you can be born into a lot of things. You can be even born into poverty.
Yes.
But like I said, you can be born into it, and still decide that, hey,
what you end up as
is
entirely still up to you.
It's still entirely by choice, because you can definitely make a change. The greatest examples of such things are again with the whole cop aspect. You choose to be a cop. You choose to enforce laws.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't mean, and I'm one of those people where all cops are bad. Not the people doing it, just all cops are bad.
It's as the position.
It's itself. The position. All cops are bastards. They can be nice people. I've met cops, like I said, the guy who fucking pulled me over a couple weeks back. I want to say that maybe that guy was a nice guy. You know, he seemed like a nice dude. He was letting me off a warning, and I had 3 fucking felonies going on. If he just searched my car, I would have been fucked. But he didn't, because I was honest with him. I complied with him, because I'm like, dude, I just want to go to work. I'm going to be fucking late at this point. And I was literally out front of my work and I got pulled over. But, and, I want to say that maybe that individual himself was a decent human being, at least superficially.
At least outside of that position, I would say.
However, though, he was a fucking pig, so I don't care.
That's the thing that even statements don't understand. It's not the claim that the actual individual human being is itself completely immoral in every single aspect. It's that they can be a moral person but still commit an immoral action.
They take an oath to uphold laws that are objectively immoral.
And that's the whole thing. And I asked Status this. I was like, "What's the point of having a law if you don't believe in using violence to enforce it?"
Right.
There is no point.
Right.
So
again, this still ties back into a lot of the underlying theme of our current events episode, which was the war on drugs at one point, or war on terror. It just depends on what topic we were talking about. War on drugs was mentioned. Again, if you guys really want all the context, just go watch the current events episode, because there's a lot of things that we covered.
There's a lot to go over.
There was a lot of. I kind of want to consider that like a bonus episode, because there was a lot of things that we talked about that are very valid opinions and very valid things, and especially in this day and age, to go over.
Anyway, tying it back,
yeah. I fucking hate that we have to stay on topic sometimes, especially late at night like this. And my ADHD is like, oh, squirrel. But anyway, so the idea of communism is that everything is owned by the people voluntarily, at least. Again,
in its stateless form.
In a stateless form, everything is owned. The power is completely evenly balanced, so there's no need for a state when it's pretty much down to one voice, one vote. Everything is democratically led. Everything is, it's one of those things where, at least from what I understand, Orthodox Marxist Leninism stuff, the state exists still, but everyone is the state. So it's not necessarily a stateless society, but it's not necessarily led by a ruling group of people, because everyone is that group of people. This is why I don't trust tankies. It's really fucking big theory. I don't get it. There's ways of achieving this. Juche is, I believe I mentioned in the last episode. Juche is the idea that
I guess I understand what you're saying. Instead of one ruling class over another, it's just one class. Period. Everyone's on the same playing field.
Yeah.
In which case, there's technically no rulers in the system.
Yeah. There's no more hierarchy to follow. There's no more masters. There's no more rulers.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone has everything that they already need. Every necessities are covered by everything. Housing needs are met, health needs are met, food needs are met. Stuff like that. Everything's met. I don't fucking know how that plans to happen, because for some reason leftists do not want to talk. Authoritarian leftists, tankies and MLs and those types of people, they don't like to talk about the end game, the anarchy position, because a lot of times anarchy gets thrown around and it's either really good or really bad on the left. A lot of times when it's being shit talked, it's usually people like you, ANCAPs. When it's being held up and praised, it's people who are not afraid to go up against tyrannical governments, like like the United States, like most Western governments and most superpowers around the world.
Well, I would say by definition, any state is
any state, yeah. There are definitely some benign states out there, but that's few and far between. Usually it's because the state can't manifest power to begin with. So
anyway, so we've decided. So it's all based on ownership of the means of production. It's just which group or people.
It's just and most of the time. Most of the time, with communism, socialism, it's usually a certain class, and it's preferred that with communism, it's the working class that owns it. That's as originally as Marx written. There is the whole overlying fucking straw man co-option of fascist views, Nazis, National Socialists, which I did say off mic to you, and I think I said I'm not going to say it on mic, but I've already made that mistake of saying it on mic, so. The whole idea about that is they were socialists, and only the fact that the only working class that ever owned the means of production was the Aryan race. People who they deemed as part of their national identity was the people who owned the means of production. And even then, if you're a working class Aryan, you did not own the means of production. It was still full-blown capitalism. It was just they didn't want any one of their undesirables, quote unquote, to have
access to
profits.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So that's the whole reason why that's not socialism at all. That's literally just a co-option of it, because
if we're going by the definition that
Marx led, you have to be all inclusive. Even if it's in a state society, you have to be all inclusive. You can't just say only these people can have access,
because then you're half-assing it.
Yeah, then you're half-assing it, and you're creating a class of owners and workers.
This is, and I would also mention, this is like the same as Republicans claiming they're capitalists. According to the APCAPs, no, they're half capitalists in this sense, and then total socialist in terms of like fucking government spending in the other. They're not consistent. They're half-assing their so-called capitalism.
Both parties half-ass everything.
Exactly. They'll claim one on one side and then just take the other.
Yep.
Okay. So anyway, we've determined that basically all the economic ideologies, communism, socialism, and capitalism, based on the definitions we presented, they're all based on ownership of means of production. That is the key factor.
Yep.
And so we've already talked about in the last episode, what does it mean to own something? What is legitimate ownership? So, to make this very clear, if there is a violation of ownership, it isn't communism, socialism, or capitalism. Because all of them are dependent upon ownership.
Yeah. Yes.
And so that's why I don't think we're made to be as enemies as people make us out to be. Because again, all of the economic ideologies, at least if you're taking our definitions as we presented, all of them are based on ownership. So if there's a violation of ownership, it by definition cannot be any form of the economic ideologies. And so now I want to talk about what is the means of production, because obviously there's a lot of nuance in that too.
Shit. I believe we did go over this in the last episode.
I believe we mentioned it.
Just for a refresher. Means of production are usually like obviously the means of production, and I feel like we use the factory, and I think we should still use that because that's the easiest way to go about this. That's
generally what people, at least like the communists, like and socialists, think about.
Yeah, it's very easy. It's a very easy analogy to use.
And so my thought process is, okay, so obviously the building, all the machinery, the tools, everything is a means of production. And so my thought process is, okay, we'll break that down further. So what about all the components that were used in the process of making that machinery?
Right.
And constructing that building, the cement, the concrete, the bricks, all the human labor, and like just everything about the machinery, the metal, the mining process, everything involved in it. When you break it down, it all comes back to, from my understanding, it's the resources of nature already provided that human beings did not create.
Yep.
And then human labor. Yep. That's all what it boils down to. And so, from my understanding, anything that you put human labor into can be a means of production. Almost anything. Wood, like dirt. I mean, I actually saw a product of this guy made a fucking hand cleaning agent out of dirt, a certain form of dirt. And it's like, holy shit. And it's like, what? Like,
that is fucking innovative as all shit.
Yes. And so I think the question is more so, it's not what is a means of production. It's more so what isn't and cannot be a means of production.
And I think off mic we already established that nature, and I mean, just like a minute ago, we established nature by itself is not a means of production. It's the labor you put into it that becomes the means of production.
Exactly.
And I believe the analogy we used off mic was, say, like a lumberjack.
Mm-hmm.
The difference between a capitalist and a socialist means of production idea here is the owner of the tool in a capitalist society being that, pays the lumberjack to cut down that tree and takes the tree for himself. Now, a socialist would have it so that he doesn't have to be paid, but his labor's already acquired, or his labor's already agreed upon and acquired for.
And that's the thing. It's like you already agreed upon this. If you want to go against that,
and then he chops down the tree, and the tree is his.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's his labor. He put his labor in to chop down that tree. He gets the fucking tree. Mm-hmm. Plus, don't try to take the tree away from him. He has an axe.
Yeah, he'll cut something else down.
He'll cut something else down. Excuse me, sir, is that half of a human? Yep, I put in the labor for it, it's mine now.
Yeah, did you ever meet the Headless Horseman? Well, he's headless, but he doesn't have a horse either.
Why is that so funny to me?
I don't know. I'm good at stupid jokes.
But anyways, yeah, so if labor is put in, I feel like that changes a lot of the ideas of just static means of production. Means of production.
And see, the thing is, like, I heard this example is, it ties back to the personal versus private property in terms of, well, all ownership is based on control of usage.
Right.
In one aspect or another. And so it's not based on what the actual thing is. What the actual thing is kind of irrelevant to whether someone has the right to control its usage or not. And that's the thing that I think differentiates between us, is that it's like, I heard this example of a cigarette roller. If I roll my own cigarettes, it's personal property, but if I roll cigarettes then sell them to others, it becomes a private ownership of a means of production.
Right.
Even though it's still producing the same thing, I'm just using it differently.
Yeah, I like that you use that, because, and this is one of the things that I laugh at, small business owners, a lot of them are either very communist or very capitalist. There's never like a spectrum. That's one or the other. And a lot of times they're very capitalist, and and I say that as in they're very statist capitalist. Conservative, I guess. Can
you just like elaborate what you mean more?
I can use an example, anecdotal. There was a woman who she made wood carving like decorations and everything. A lot of times flags. Very, very good at her job. Very good at what she did. And she was she's a Trumper. So, but she's all sitting there like, aha, socialism never win. The socialists will never get my money. And it's like, but here you are. You own your own tools. You own your own, you own your own means of production, pretty much. You own your tools. Your labor is all you. You profit off of everything that you make. So don't fucking worry about it. That's you. That's all you. You are profiting off of your labor, not someone else isn't. They owned the means of production, and they don't understand socialism, so they thought that, oh, it's just a bunch of welfare queens wanting my money. No, it's you owning your labor and the fruits of it. And that's the whole point of means of, worker means of production are owned by the workers.
Mm-hmm.
They own the profits that they generate.
I will say another thing too, side note, is a lot of this people will tie back to collectivism versus individualism.
Yes, that is probably the best thing to do.
And we'll see. Another thing, my thought process is that socialism and communism, well, it's all based on the workers.
Yes.
But in the same sense, it's all about the worker.
Yes.
Right? And so there is a sense of individualism where each worker has their say of a means of production, right?
Right.
And so I don't think it's made to be more of an evil than it is, I would say, at least from ANCAPs. I mean, a lot of it depends on if it's forced or not. Obviously, if you're forcing your will onto other people in terms of how they associate with others,
right?
That's tyranny. That's statism.
Yeah, that's definitely authoritarianism right there.
Well, you can have voluntary forms of collectivism where each voluntarily choose to associate with others and put the community before themselves in terms of maybe like sacrificing their own work or labor to help out the needs of another.
Right.
In that form, that's totally fine because people are choosing to do it voluntarily.
And there is something that, especially it's like a rallying cry for syndicalists. They both mean the same thing, but injury to one is an injury to all, and commonly simplified as they can't fire all of us. You laugh, but that's actually a real thing.
I don't doubt it.
I've said it a lot of times before. And mostly,
I know a song that says you can't silence us all, and so I just changed it.
You
can't just fire us all.
That's great. Pretty much what it was is one of my friends that I work with, you know them. She was getting wrongfully charged with something. Like they were saying that she passed off on a bad part when she didn't, and she was quality. So, you know, there was a whole thing of, oh, well, if they fire her, they're going to have to fire me, her husband. They fired her, they fired me. You know, and I said, fuck it, they're firing me too. Pretty much what it was everyone was like, yeah, I'm going to quit. So it's like, because everyone knew it was bullshit, but everyone knew that it was just the front office having their fucking vendetta. Mm-hmm. That right there is a voluntary collective. It's the idea of community. It's everyone understanding that everything works as it is right now and works fine just the way it is. So they all banded together, not by force, but out of the will of their own, you know, kindness, or, you know, just the idea of a community banding together. You know, numbers are stronger than just one person. Mm-hmm. So I like to think of it as collectivization is the individual will
to choose the collective over themselves,
or it's the individual will expanded by multiple individuals, so to speak. I don't know if that makes sense to you. Yeah, it kind of makes sense to me. So I'm kind of running with it right
now. I think, like you said, it's each individual, but they're still choosing to value the group of individuals more than themselves.
Yeah, and that's a choice.
They're choosing to do it.
Yes, and that is something it's very valid to do.
And I think I think forcing each, like, it doesn't matter. Like, if you're forcing people, an individual into a collective, obviously that's tyranny. But if you're forcing an individual out of a community too, that's equally unjustified.
Right.
And so it doesn't matter which way it goes.
Right. Anyways, I would like, since we're all talking about the whole thing about force, I would also like to bring up this, because both of us have a very fine line about how the state forces us to do things. We've talked about this a little bit, and actually previously about maybe 20 minutes ago I mentioned something about it. So I'm gonna start off because I already have that on, like, lined up and ready to fire. Taxes and rent. You would say taxation is theft. You know, the whole meme. Mine is, you know, rent is theft, property is theft, whatever. I don't believe property is theft. It just depends on what kind of property we're talking about.
Well, actually, didn't Proudhound say he said property is theft? He said two other statements regarding property, didn't he?
I am fucked if I can't remember, honestly.
I believe he also said, like, property is freedom and property is something else. I can't remember what. I believe he made three different statements regarding property, but property is theft is one of them.
Yes. I want to say property is theft is kind of like a rally.
But again, like if you're taking out the statement at face value, if you just read it and told someone that, they'd be like, yeah, that doesn't make any fucking sense. You can't steal something of it that isn't owned. And so obviously the context behind it is important.
It's very important.
And so I haven't fully read Proudhound.
I haven't read one word of that motherfucker, to be honest with you.
Yeah, so I wouldn't call myself at liberty to really talk about that because, again, I'm not fully understanding the context of which he wrote that.
But one of the greatest things is, and I will agree with you, taxation can be theft. One of the biggest things, and I believe you agreed with me off mic on this, is sales tax. Because this was on mic because we were talking about the weed legalization in Michigan in the current events episode, which you guys need to fucking listen to because it's so much contextual to all the shit that we're talking about now because a lot of it ties in with this just so magically. Mm-hmm. So pretty much what it is the whole thing with weed is, and I anecdotally mentioned that my friend and I, when we were going to go get shatter a couple days back, we had to include tax money because the state of Michigan adds on a 3% tax on top of the 6% tax that we already have for
sales. Yeah.
The reason why I want to talk about that is because sales tax is immediately against the working class.
Elaborate. I'm interested to hear it.
All right. So, say let's just use a loaf of bread. I feel like that's very simple.
The Conquest of Bread.
The Conquest of Bread. Yes. Read the bread book.
The bread book. The Anarchist Bake Book.
Anarchist Cookbook. But anyway, so pretty much what it is say I have a loaf of bread. It costs $1.50.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. State of Michigan, you get the 6% sales tax. Now it costs $1.56.
Well, it actually costs like $1.59.
All right, shh. You get the point. I get the point. It adds on an extra value to it so that the state can take away from your money. All right. So, in order to buy this product, you have to pay the state. That's rule number one. That's just fucked up right there. Mm-hmm. I've already paid the state when I get paid, so why do I have to pay them twice?
I wouldn't say pay. I would say extorted, but
tomato.
Exactly.
It's just a different face on this part.
Yeah.
So, you pay that. Now, say I only have $1.50 to the dot. I now cannot afford that loaf of bread. Even though I have the money to afford that, I have the exact change in my pocket, $1.02 in my pocket. I can afford that loaf of bread. But because Uncle Sam wants his money,
now you can't.
Now I can't. Sales tax disproportionately affects working class and poor individuals more than it will ever affect a rich class person. Simply because the odds that a working class individual cannot afford something are bigger because of the tax. And especially with how expensive, like we'd say, I want a computer that's $900. That's, let's see here, 900 times
$6 per 100.
Yeah, so that'd be
You have a calculator on your phone, dude.
Fuck off. That'd be like $945. I'm now paying 45 extra, or I fucked up my math somewhere, but you get the point.
It's like
I'm now paying almost $50 more than I should be. 53
in terms of the actual value of the good.
Or 54. Yeah, I'm paying $54 extra. Oh yeah, I'm just dyslexic. Okay, $54 extra I'm paying for that product. All right, that's a lot of money, especially like
the poorer you are,
the more poor you are, the more you can't afford that. I know some people will say that a computer is a luxury, and so yeah, that is correct. It is a luxury. It is an opulent good, especially in a day and age where we have phones that are as strong as some computers are. Like the computers that we were using in school aren't as strong as some of the phones that we have coming out these days. Like, so I get that, a computer is a luxury, and again, this is all anecdotal. I'm using this more as a hyperbole. Mm-hmm. Sales tax is disproportionately oppressive to working class people because a lot of times we don't have the ability to pay bills and pay taxes that we already have to fucking pay anyway for income tax and everything. And putting up a paywall to make us afford goods that we need to live, like bread, like, any other food, like
water, whatever.
Fuck.
Don't even get you started.
I'm glad you brought up water, especially in the state of Michigan. Fuck Nestle. Just out of any way, fuck Nestle. But I just got reminded that they paid only $200 to take, I think there was like 13 billion gallons of our water. And then the cheeky fuckers decided to donate it to Flint and said that they still had to pay for it. Like,
what?
Yeah, they fucking donated the water after fucking stealing it from us.
I have to pound the table, dude. I get so mad you are.
Yes, I am fucking irate about this. They took one of our natural resources that we need to live and said, here you go, that'd be $20 for this 12-pack. Go fuck yourself. Anyway, and then that was probably also taxed too, so whatever. But, anyways, off on that tangent, we both agreed that sales tax is fucking stupid. Because I know you agree tax is fucking stupid.
Yeah, see, you got a bunch of fucking libertarians that claim, oh, that's a voluntary tax. No, it's fucking not.
It's not.
Really?
If you have to buy something, again, with the whole thing with goods that you need, like necessity goods, like medicine, food, water.
And I'm gonna say it's not even relevant to what the fucking good is. It doesn't matter because it's either way. It's the state forcing its stipulations onto other parties, and if you do that as an individual to other people, you immediately realize it's fucking tyranny and bullshit.
Yeah.
If you try and go to a store. Like any store, or even a garage sale, or a fucking farmer's market, you try to buy something, and I come up with a gun and say, no, see, you have to meet my stipulations in order to fucking do that.
6 cents.
In order to make that transaction with that other person.
Yeah.
You immediately realize, oh, that's bullshit. That's unjustified.
Yeah.
And so, and that's the thing, one of the reasons why or how I became an anarchist, because I can't have fucking double standards for the state that I wouldn't apply to any other context of normal social interaction.
Yeah, and one of the things that I like to talk about, or I like to kind of view it as, is think of it this way: you buy the good, right? Some dude walks up, takes the good, has it in one hand, puts the hand away from you, puts his hand out, and says that'd be 9 cents.
Yeah, it would be like, what the fuck?
Like, I already paid for that. Yeah, I know, 9 cents. What the fuck, man?
Yeah. You can take that 9 cents and stuff it up your ass.
Stuff it up your ass. You get it all in half pennies. Haha, fuck you. But I do also, at the same time, in the context of a state-led society, I do believe taxes to be worthwhile. On some taxes, income tax, I'm for a progressive income tax. I don't know if you know what that is. Progressive proprietary.
Yeah. Yes, it's with the flat tax where it's isn't it the flat?
No, or is it progressive? Not? It's
it increases per.
It's what we have in effect right now. Where we have tax brackets. Like you make this much income, you pay this much. The more you take. Yeah, I'm for that. It's equal. I'm not for how they're fucking treating it now, where they're fucking shoving everything off on the working class. That's French Revolution 101. Don't do that. But I'm for it. In the past, America has been for it. When Eisenhower was in office, we had a 70% fucking tax on the top,
top 1%.
Well, I won't say top 1%, but on the top tax bracket, like that, I think it was like $1 million and up a year. Had staff to pay 70% of their income. Like, I will use my phone for this, but to put it simply. Let's see here. 1 million.
70% of $1 million is $700,000.
Okay, it's very late at night, so I'm just going to say that right now. Yeah, so $700,000. You're left with $300,000. What would you do with $300,000? I'd buy a fucking house. Because I can. I could buy a fucking house.
Even in this market, I could buy a house cash.
Yeah.
Like a decent house.
I'd fucking just walk up and buy it.
I wouldn't live fucking here, but...
Same. I mean, okay, I get with that whole thing in this current economy that I'm thinking about. 300,000, it's still a lot of fucking money, but for something egregious like that, you're left with nothing afterwards, because sometimes, good homes are a lot. I mean, I found a lot of nice homes around the area for such a I'm out 150K. Well, not too bad. But it just depends. Cost of living, is a thing. But it's like, I'm okay. It's all based on how that money is used, though, according to you. Yes. I would rather, and I said this when I was talking about, especially like in current events, when I was talking about that conversation that I had with my friend about, the whole thing of, America can't pull out of the Middle East because we look like a bitch if we do that, and yet here we are 20 years later looking like a bitch being defeated by people who aren't even organized. So,
yeah,
it's that whole idea that the military-industrial complex, if it wasn't around, fucking this country would be a lot better off than what it is. We would have the money for Medicare for all. We already do have the money. Again, it's just tied up in war. We'd have the money for Medicare. We'd have the money for better housing for everyone. We'd be able to be literally the best socialist country around because we have the money for that. We are the wealthiest fucking nation in the history of the world. But we're also the most aggressive nation.
You're kind of going off the other definition of socialist, though.
Right.
In the kind of sense of the state side socialist.
Yes. Well,
in terms of that sense.
Well, I like to think the whole idea of socialism is more of a process than it is of an idea. It's it's a transition into anarchy. It's a smooth transition into anarchy. I use smooth because most of the time it has to start out in a revolt.
I thought anarchy was the end goal of socialism.
Yeah,
right?
It's a transition to it. That's what it's supposed to be, at least. But every fucking nation in the past have always, with the exception of, from what I believe, Vietnam, Democratic Republic of Democratic People's Republic of Korea, and Cuba. I think those are like the only nations that probably have any kind of sort of idea of how to transition into that state.
I think a lot of our differences too goes in terms of your process of achieving anarchy is the exact opposite of the ANCAPs. The ANCAPs is reduce the state necessities down and secede all the way down to the individual. Yours is increase the state
until the individual becomes the state. So it's like a mirror, yeah.
And so I think that's one of the big reasons is that our process of getting there is the opposite.
Yeah, but again, there's no real way of knowing what's correct to do because neither of them have been tried. And most of the time when either of them have been tried, the state gets involved and fucks everything up.
Or some other state will get involved.
Some state gets involved and fucks things up.
Yeah, if from my understanding, the way I proceed or I come to this view is that it would make much more sense to reduce it rather than increase it if the state itself is based on an injustice.
Yes.
Which, that's what I've come to the conclusion. It's an injustice.
That's fair.
So it would make sense to reduce that, not increase it until it destroys itself.
Yeah.
And that leads to some people of the ANCAPs and I guess what this YouTuber, Mr. Dapperton, called the VOCAPs, or voluntary capitalists, where they believe in...
I like that term.
They believe in fucking voting to... they support, Adam Kokesh. Well, they believe in voting...
Like a direct democracy kind of thing.
Well, they believe in voting someone in and diminishing the state by voting people in to help reduce the state. And
so Juche, pretty much. It sounds like Juche.
Yeah, pretty much. And from my understanding,
he's calling voluntarists communists.
I
feel like that's insulting to you guys.
See, I don't take that stance because if taxation is theft, you're taking a position based on that is funded by theft.
Yeah,
and fundamentally, I don't understand why and how you can be voted into the system and then reducing the system that you're voted into. Fundamentally, though, structurally, that's not how the incentives work.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
And we've been talking about taxes a lot, and I do hear what you're saying there. But there is also something that I mentioned again about 10 minutes into the podcast, and I mentioned Mao, and I don't know why. I don't know if you know why I like mentioning Mao, especially with certain groups, especially when the idea of classicide comes up. It's the idea of a complete killing off of an entire class, which is used a lot, especially on the left, because we deal with class. Mm-hmm. Back in China, historically, when back when they were having their civil war, and then the Japanese invaded and made everything fucking weird. there was a lot of ruling states. There was a lot of warlord states. It was in a collapsed state that China goes through every now and then. The Chinese people go through every now and then, as history shows. And there was a lot of warlords, and one of the biggest pushes for that was a landlord class. Like there was an actual fucking class.
Oh, kind of like feudalism.
Yeah, feudalism. Yeah, and it's Maoism is one of those things where it lumps landlords into masters, into people who are a ruling class. They are inherently statist because, they have property that they sell that is a necessity. It's not something that you can live without. It's not a laptop. It's not,
well, no matter where you're at,
it's
unless you're living in a fucking ocean somehow, you're going to need land.
And you need a house. Especially you need shelter.
Need some form of shelter, which requires land.
Yeah, and
unless you're going to do something like seasteading,
right.
But and I don't know how anyone can live
houseboats
in the. Yeah, but you need resources that are provided from land in order to even fucking make
yachts.
As you sip your cup.
As I sip my teacup. This is my fancy English tea time. As Reginald brings the brunch. Because most of the time, if you want to have a house out on the water, either if it's on land that is next to water, or if it's literally on a fucking big ass boat out on the water, you're probably very rich and you probably have a house on inland. So
yeah, I know there's a group of there's a seasteading movement, but as for right now, you gotta have a lot of time and resources up front in order to be able to do that.
Do you hear the pigs outside? I hear the pigs outside.
Well,
that could also be an ambulance.
Well, that's the thing. I live right down the road from the fire department too.
Oh, okay. So it's probably a fire department.
The fire department's literally like a mile down the road.
Dope. If your place ever catches fire, you're good.
Well, yeah, that's true. I'm wondering if that shows up in the recording.
I don't know. That is really loud, though.
Yeah, it is.
I want to say that was a fire department because that was a really loud fucking horn. I don't think cops have rumblers that loud.
That sounded like the fire department.
Yeah.
Anyway,
so it's a good first responders. Anyway, so the reason why I bring this up is because the idea of rent being theft. It's the same thing as taxes, pretty much. You work
from your from your perspective is basically the same.
You work, you get your labor, and the state already takes their cut, and your boss takes his cut. He didn't fucking do anything, but that's again that's there. And then you get home, rent's due. Now you have to take your hard-earned cash and fucking pay someone who already has. They already have a place that they're living in, but they want you to pay to live in a house that they own. When obviously they had enough money to go buy another fucking house, And that's the idea that rent is theft. Because it's the idea that someone already has this, and they've accumulated more than they need of it, and then now they can control the scarcity of such things. And in doing so, they can say, "Oh, hey, actually, I've had this happen to a neighbor when I was living up in the apartment. Our neighbors were actually they weren't getting evicted. Their lease was up about 2 months while we were into our lease. And what happened was we were paying $500 a month, that entire complex. The three units were paying $500 a month. Our landlords were making $1,500 off of us and splitting it two ways. They wanted to up the rent to $600, which we laughed at because it was a very old building. And
it wasn't worth it?
It wasn't worth it, dude. It was barely worth $500 if you ask me.
But yeah, when we lived in our apartment, it was shitty, but they wanted the starting price was $645, and it was basically the entire size of the apartment was probably less than this. Actually, it's less than
from the kitchen to that wall, pretty much.
Yeah, you just rearrange a little bit of space, it'd be less than that slightly at least. and they wanted $645 a month, and every year they upped it.
Yeah,
they upped it to like $675.
Mine was probably from your bar down to that window in size, and I was paying $500 a month. I was paying $250 a month.
Well, even if you split it, yeah, that's my foot.
Okay, I was like, cat? I thought your cat was over there. I'm like, I'm about ready to get fucking ganked.
Nope.
Like, Jesus. But yeah, you see what I mean? Like,
I understand, and the thing is,
because they're generating their own scarcity of it, and it's the same thing that the state does with currency. They generate their own scarcity with it.
In terms of fractional reserve banking, yeah, they create artificial inflation and scarcity. The thing with it all comes back to how is their claim of that land or house, whatever, legitimate? Is if they paid some workers, right? And the workers fully agreed to it, to build this complex or house or whatever it is, in return for this lump of money.
Yeah.
And they did that. And they paid them. All the workers got what they wanted out of it. It's done. And they're agreed to have this funder own it. If he makes an offer saying, hey, this I'll let you use this if you pay me so and so much a month. You have to agree to that up front. And that's the whole thing, is that there's
a consensual thing, but at the same time there is a coercion with it, especially, like, again, in the context of a state, there's a coercion with it. You can't just squat in a house because, if it's abandoned, someone might own it, and if they own it, they can get the police to evict you and fucking throw you in jail, I guess. I don't know, but I've never squatted before because I never had the need to. But
it's possible, yeah.
There's an essence of coercion with it because that's a necessity to life,
But I would say that's the coercion's not, again, it's not coming from another human being.
It's not coming from a human being. It's coming from a state entity, so to speak.
If the state, I mean, because we already talked about this in our first episode, which is the state artificially just claims an ownership claim over everything within its territory.
Yeah.
It claims ownership over everything, including every person in it. Otherwise, because a state can't control what it doesn't own. You can't control something you don't own, because that doesn't make any sense.
Even though they have technically no claim of ownership, they just say that they own it, and if you say no, they shoot you in the head.
Yeah, but logically speaking, that there's nothing that the state doesn't claim to own.
Yes, but you live here, and on these borders, you're owned by us. You pay us. If you don't, you get thrown in one of our jails.
Yes, and killed if you resist.
Killed if you resist.
So, and the thing with the artificial scarcity in terms of housing is that there would be many more housing and homesteading if people were allowed to fucking do that without the threat of violence from the state.
Yes.
A lot more people would do that. I know a lot of people that would totally drop everything and do that if they could. Yeah. If not, for some restriction or threat of violence by the state. Yeah. And so that's the coercion where if that didn't exist, a whole bunch of housing, especially in like things like California, where it's like fucking 500 or like a few $1 million for some shack in the middle of the fucking city.
Dude, that cost of living is such a beautiful thing to talk about, because it's like conveniency is only available. I fucking hate it, because again, cost of living would not exist in a socialist society because everyone already has everything maintained for them. It's readily available.
If the state took their progression of all the necessities up until its collapse.
Yes. So I'd like to point this out. One of my friends, he recently moved. He recently moved to a place where it's more located in the city. Like, how I live out rurally. He used to live out that way. And the housing out there is cheaper. Like I mentioned earlier on, it was like $150,000. Mm-hmm. Now where he lives in a trailer park, but it's everything around him though. Like I know some of my fiance's family, they live out here in this area. Houses are like $300,000 out here.
Yeah,
they're not really much different than the houses
it's all location.
It's all because everything's around. There's a mall down the street. There's
the more city wise it is, the more congested and convenience thing, the more the price increases. Generally speaking.
Yep.
Especially even if it's close to the city but has a lot of land, then it definitely takes into consideration.
Yeah.
Location.
Yeah, pretty much. So that's the whole thing about cost of living that I don't like, though, is I shouldn't be barred from living somewhere that I want to live. Like, say I want to move out to Colorado, which I do. I like the idea of state. I like the idea of the state and everything. I like because I hate the fucking automobile industry. So I want to move far away from it as I can. So
I even had an attorney telling me in terms of Michigan's insurance and car laws, it's directly a result of the big three being here.
Yep. But yeah, a lot of it, and again, a lot of it is coercion.
Yes, and so that's basically all is the source of the state is one element of coercion or another.
Yep. So
in terms of the housing, like I said, we both agree without that state, there'd be way more housing availability to it. But you're still opposed to the idea of having to pay for it. And so one of the arguments against that is that the state essentially providing everyone with a house or some other basic necessity is that it's the way of enforcing equality essentially in the terms of you own this, and no one's allowed to own more or less.
Right. I get that. And that's again goes back to the whole thing of equality. Like the whole idea that socialism is always going to be statist, and again that's because the individual becomes the state.
I think that it would take a lot of explanation, I guess, to even make it
I guess
perhaps understand that.
I guess the working idea about it is Section 8. Section 8 housing and everything like that. That's pretty much how it is. But of course, since it's a necessity and we have the fucking war industry going on, and it's really gutted, and I always I don't want to live in Section 8 housing. Yeah, because you don't want to fund it either. You don't want to fund it.
There was at one point me and my wife were not opposed to getting Section 8 housing. It's just I made too much money to even qualify for it.
Yeah, and that's another fucking thing that I hate about it.
And I'm still like relatively speaking, I definitely make less than the median income.
Yeah, and my issue with it is I'm the same way. I used to not want to get medical coverage through the state. I used to not want to get medical help through the state. I was one of those people who were I don't want any handouts. But it got to a point where I had no job. This was back a couple years ago. I went up north to work on a job selling fireworks. And I got fucking shrimped out of that job. My friend just completely fucking took the money with it and ran. And I don't talk to him anymore for obvious reasons. I'm pretty fucking pissed off at him. Mm-hmm. So there's that. But when I came back, of course, I was gone for a month. I had no more money left to my name because I had to fill up my tank both going up there and coming back. Uh-huh. So, and I had to pay for living and stuff. So for a month, I pretty much bankrupted myself. And I came back. And I got a job working under the table, which is fucking grando.
Okay.
And I made little money off of it, though. Point is I ended up signing up for state aid. I bit the bullet and swallowed it, and I mean, I'm happy I did that because when my appendix burst the next year, I was still under state aid, like medical coverage. I didn't pay a single cent to have them take out my appendix and literally save my life. Mm-hmm. That's something that is fucking miraculous to me. That got me on board right there. Because if, I pay taxes into it anyway. My taxes go into that because they have it set up where, FICA takes taxes for the insurance companies, mm-hmm. for this insurance in the state. I pay taxes on it, and I got it fucking scotch-free. I'm like, why the fuck does no one else do this? Well, because people want to hold on to their fucking money. But it's the whole idea of if, there's that thing where if we stop going to war with every fucking person who points a finger at us and start saying, fuck you guys, we're going to go back and actually learn how to live, we wouldn't have to have this discussion, but we do.
I think it also ties into how much the state controls the medical industry, though.
Yeah.
Another thing too is that the insurance is collaborated with the state so much. The lines are
blurred at this point.
Oh, the lines are so blurred.
I know one of my before she got put back onto. Yeah, did I tell you about this? One of my former head quality at my job told my one of our quality control members, because with the labor cuts and everything, that breaks are a privilege.
Oh, you told me about this.
Yeah. I don't know if I mentioned this in the last episode. I don't know if this happened in the last episode, but this was pretty recent coming into the shutdown. It was she was complaining because she couldn't do breaks. If she had to give breaks to operators, she would never get a break that day because she was doing two jobs. She was doing quality and production, and they're very stressful jobs together. And she said, "Bro, breaks are a privilege." And our owner pulled her into the office and said, "You can't tell anyone that. The fact that you just told that makes I could have a $25,000 fine or some odd fucking number sitting on my desk the next morning if she goes to the DOL with that information, because you just told someone that you allow us to break the law to fuck them over." And he's like, "I'm not going to have that because that's coming out of your paycheck," kind of thing, It's that whole thing. It's just she ended up on the after that, she kind of got demoted and put back on the shop floor, and they promoted our GP12 formally. But she had the reason why she was gone for so long. She had open heart surgery. Mm-hmm. She's now paying $100,000 still for it. She's in the whole $100,000.
Damn.
She has medical coverage. She has our company's medical coverage. Why the fuck is she still paying $100,000? I don't like her. Don't get me wrong. She's a class fucking traitor. I don't like her. Why the fuck is she still paying $100,000 though? She's covered. She has insurance. She works 40 hours a week like everyone else. Why the fuck does she have to give her money away to an insurance company for $100,000 for most of the time interest? You know what I mean?
Yeah, because it accumulates over time, which is
ridiculous.
Yeah, I think a lot of it. We both agree that the stateless form of healthcare would obviously be better, but in terms of the insurance, I mean, in terms insurance,
and the healthcare in itself is a topic for another discussion, because we could be here for hours on end till our face turns blue and we end up just passing out from exhaustion of not sleeping. But
yeah,
it's something to talk about, but it's something to also keep in your mind that it's bullshit that people who work full time, and it's not about people who just can't work. It's about people who do work and still can't afford to fucking cover their medical bills, and they're even insured. Like, how can you say that? Oh, if you have insurance, you're fine. When people who are insured working 40 hours a week on a salary job can't even afford their own fucking insurance.
It's all relative what the insurance actually decides to what they want to cover.
Yeah, and that's fucking bullshit. It should be, this is a life-saving technique. Here, you know what? We're not going to fucking charge you for it. Like, I feel like that should be the thing,
In that case, and then the argument would be like, okay, well, the people who are doing this all need to be compensated.
Right. And I'm pretty sure there is some kind of compensation. And again, that's something that I'd have to, study a little bit on. But I'm pretty sure there's some system in place that we could always have some compensation for.
Maybe when we talk about this, we'll talk about how healthcare would be run in each society.
Yep. That'd be a topic for a later episode, obviously. Mm-hmm. But I do want to start moving down this list again, because we just finally passed the hour-long mark, and it looks like we're actually going to have episode longer than our current events, which thank fucking God, because that was a long episode. Jesus Christ. So next,
you want to talk about money?
I'm going to talk about money because currency and economics go hand in hand, like I said at the beginning of the episode. And I had this conversation with someone in a group where I'm not going to mention any names or anything, just to remain somewhat some degree of anonymity. It was pretty much the idea that he was a small business owner, and I gave him the whole spiel about if you let your workers unionize, you're going to have issues maintaining your wage theft, and I also gave him on the hint that the best way to stop that is happy workforce is a productive workforce. Just listen to them. They won't need to organize if you just listen to them and make sure their demands are met. Mm-hmm. The working class, we're not fucking complete assholes about our complaints. Literally, all we want to do is just be able to have the time to fuck off at our job every now and then. Know the people we're working with. We're there 8 hours a fucking day at least. The common courtesy you can do is at least let us have some kind of home environment where we can feel comfortable in. It's not. I don't feel like that's too much of something to ask for.
I agree. I understand what you're saying. I had it at my production job.
Yeah.
Efficiently, and then I do have it at my job here, but it is still definitely okay. The whole at the end of the day, if you don't do your job, we don't fulfill our customers' needs. Yeah. Well, we're out of a job.
Yeah. But that was me just kind of digressing. The thing I wanna bring up is the other conversation I had with the same individual. It was about currency. He was talking about, actually, I believe I still have this pulled up on my phone and Facebook. I hope, because that was a pain in the ass to find. All right, so it was a flowchart of like, oh, is this thing important? And it's like, okay, the people pay for it.
Yeah, it's that voluntarious flowchart of how to explain how something would be funded without taxation.
Yes.
Do you value it? Okay. Yes. Okay. Are you willing to give your money for it voluntarily? No. Oh, well then again, it goes back to, well, do you value it?
And then it's is it important? Yes. Would you be willing to pay for it even if you weren't forced to? And if you answer no, it goes back to, then is it really important?
Because it doesn't make any sense to say I highly value this thing while simultaneously holding the position of I'm not willing to voluntarily pay money for this thing that I highly value. I mean, that's like, to me, it's like standing in a fucking grocery store, starving, and saying, you know what, I really, really, really want food, and I have the money to pay for the food, but I'm not willing to pay for the food.
Exactly.
But it doesn't make any sense.
Exactly. Now, my whole thing about this, and we'll get to that. We'll get to that, because that's your bartering 101 right there. But it also ties into this. My whole thing is I asked a simple question: how would you pay for important things in a stateless society? How would you pay for that? How would you? Hey, I'll give you 50 schmeckles for that.
50 schmeckles.
Like,
the argument is what's going to be the methodology of the transfer? Because, what I'm actually paying you with if the state falls, and obviously the state-run currency falls with it.
Yeah. The whole idea, and the greatest part about this is in America, all of our money is assigned by what the ink says it is, and what the government says it is. Yeah. What the government puts on that ink to put on that, a $1 bill has the same amount of ink as a $5 bill, as a $20 bill, as a 50, and as a 100. The only difference that all that value makes, they're all the same materials. Everything goes into the same process of making that. So, labor-wise, they're all equally made, almost identically the same value.
All the fucking serial number, a picture of a president or whatever, and
everything is equal labor-wise, but the value aside is enforced by the state. So, how would you, in a voluntarious, stateless society, pay for things without a currency, without an agreed-upon currency? That's why they agreed. Because I get, like, you have, like, say, you did mention prison.
Yeah, so in terms of, like the way I think of it is, basically, I think of the movie Shawshank Redemption.
Yeah.
In prison system. Well, cigarettes is like a form of currency because it has a high enough utility where most people seek and value it.
Right.
Because they can get some sort of usage out of it to fulfill some personal desire. And so that's what makes them if most people
right.
crave that. Because even if someone didn't smoke, the majority of the people in the prison do smoke, and they can still use it, or a fucking candy bar, or almost anything. So the here is almost anything can be a currency. All it takes is enough people to get some sort of utility out of it.
Yeah. So like, you know, something simple like a cigarette, candy bar.
They just have to value it enough.
And I feel like that's perfect because, you know, say I want to sell something, but the market says that, you know, the price is like, oh, it's going for $50. So, I mean, I had to be in that neighborhood if I want to really actually have any chance of selling it, right? So, and someone who doesn't need something, like say I want something and I know it's going to cost me like $10. Like, I don't need it, but I mean, the convenience is there, so I'm going to take it. But someone else might really want it, and they might actually be willing to go higher for it, but they don't have the money for it, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, this also ties into subjective theory of value.
Yes.
It's because, and value is entirely subjective. And I've even heard communists, like authoritarian communists, say, you know, oh, well, no, value is objective. And he uses like water as an example. I'm like, all right, so at fucking Walmart, they have the little cooler station near the checkout line. Bottled water, like 16 fluid ounces, is like $1.49 or something for a 16 fluid ounces in a bottle, right? Where if you go back into the water aisle, you can get an entire gallon of water for less than that.
Yeah.
Why would?
Conveniency.
And not only that, but you got different stores that'll also sell water bottles, even if it's the same brand at different prices. How would that be the case if it's an objective form of value?
Correct.
That doesn't make any sense. And obviously, if someone's not thirsty, they're not going to value water as much in that moment as much as someone who is thirsty.
Right. And that all goes back to the whole thing of then how are you going to pay for it? And I love that entire conversation that I had with this man, because it was that big balls kind of attitude where it's like, oh, wow, obviously voluntarily. I'm like,
that wasn't the fucking point of the question.
Not why. You're completely omitting a word from my question and substituting your own for a question that you've already answered, that you think I'm going to ask. I'm not asking why. I'm not here to ask why. I know why. I read the fucking flowchart. I know it's voluntarily. I want to know, how would you pay for these things?
In the literal sense.
In a literal sense, in a stateless society, because there's nothing there to enforce that value. And one of the things that was mentioned was cryptocurrency. And I don't know much about it because it's fucking crypto. I don't fucking know about it. I don't care. I'm not rich enough to fucking deal with Bitcoin. And then I will admit that full-heartedly.
And I will say just to clarify, I'm not an ANCAP that's like, I don't fully understand cryptocurrency. I've tried. I have 2 whole fucking books on it, and I've tried. Yeah, I've tried reading, and I don't understand it.
The audacity.
So I'm not. If you want to, you know, I fully support it in terms of decentralization, and if it works, help undermine the straight, fucking great. But it's just something it's definitely not my expertise.
And one of the things that they mentioned is that cryptocurrency doesn't need a state to generate its value. Its value. One of the things that I mentioned off mic when we were talking about, you know, because usually when we do this, we talk about topics that we can cover, and a lot of times when we do this, we kind of have like a mock kind of discussion where if we can just go for like 2 minutes just discussing it, it usually ends up being talked about on mic because, you know, there's obviously valid discussion there that can be talked about.
Yep.
And this was something that we talked about for a while, because there was the idea that with Bitcoin, it was blowing up a lot when a couple of my friends were building computers, and of course graphics cards were one of the things that was like denotion of value with Bitcoin. That was my problem. Was they only watched the Bitcoin like market because when it went down, the price of graphic cards also went down. So it was like there was definitely something tied to it. But the thing is how can you tie a good, a manufactured good to something that does not, or a value to a manufactured good when most people like the petrodollar, like the gold standard, like the silver standard, all of those things occur naturally. There's no labor that has to be put in to achieve value from those items.
Because people already subjectively value it at a certain level.
So there's already a state agreed upon level of value to those items. So you have to put labor into making graphics cards. How can you objectively or how can you even value that, I guess? Because now you have to say that, say eventually graphics cards become so fucking like readily available that they're like maybe, I don't know, fucking Bitcoin standards, but I'm just gonna, like boomer list 10 Bitcoin. Like, they cost that. So how's, the worker obviously doesn't want to work for 10 fucking Bitcoin anymore, because obviously that market's so fucking inflated that 10 Bitcoin probably gets in like a fucking slice of bread down at Panera Bread or something, you know what I mean? So like, how would you say that cryptocurrency is valid when most of the time it's still tied onto a different currency because people don't fucking pay it to begin with? And it's just, there's so many things wrong with currency. I think currency, when the state dies, currency dies with it. And honestly, bartering system will be the best bet, where you have, your cigarettes, your candy bars, for any Fallout fans out there, you get your bottle caps, or Metro Last Light people, that's your military grade ammunition.
You can trade ammunition with each other, or guns, or something.
I like that. I mean, I like ammunition as a
ANCAPism ANCAPism isn't opposed to bartering. It's just that, generally speaking, you get transactions that it's like extremely hard to subjectively
broker, pretty much.
Well, it's like here. How many chickens do you want for this computer?
Right.
Well, what if you didn't want any chickens? I don't have, like, if I want something you have, but I don't have anything that you want, how am I going to get it?
Right.
I have to go find someone else. But it's like, the more ability for people to trade with each other, at least in some common aspect, the better everyone off is, because the more goods will flow.
Right. Like, one of my things is, everyone always needs something. They always need multiple things.
Or want.
Yeah. Like, say someone has, 3 cars, but they need a computer, which, honestly, by the way, if someone has 3 cars, they don't need a fucking computer. They probably got 10 of them.
Already. They can easily sell one and grab a whole bunch of computers.
Exactly. Like, say they wanted a computer because they fucking miraculously don't have one, and they just wanted to learn coding or something. And say, I have a computer, but I don't have a ride around. That just so happens that, we could trade. But say I already have a car, and now I have a computer. Well, that guy wants to give up a car for his computer. Fuck it. I guess I got 2 cars now. I don't need this computer, but I have 2 cars now. So now I can, it's the whole idea with the bartering system is that you trade, like, if you know that you can assign a value to this thing, that someone will want this in the future, you should be fine. But again, I feel like the bartering system will always have like a flat item that will always be needed by someone. So I feel like any kind of drug item would definitely. Weed, I've seen weed be used as currency before.
Oh, I wouldn't doubt that would be able to use as currency, because it's highly valued between a lot of people. And even if I don't smoke weed, but guess what? If I had some, I'm pretty sure I could find someone willing to trade something.
I would definitely trade you something for
any kind of drug. I mean, that as long as enough people.
Yeah,
you have
people are going to want it, because most drugs are addictive to begin with. So it's like there's always going to be a fucking market open for this.
Well, weed's not really addictive, but
it's not addictive. You can develop a dependency on it, but
but it's hard.
It's not a full blown like addiction like heroin or alcoholism is.
Hard
it's not like it's not like I will fucking cut you if man, I don't got weed. Fucking hell. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I guess I'll just go eat or something. I don't know.
And maybe in some case that will be true in that there's always how do I word this? There will always be some form of scale where bartering is an option, where there's no formally actual what would typically considered currency is necessary.
Yeah.
I can see that being possible, I guess.
I'd like for Fallout. I'm glad I mentioned Fallout because now I'm actually thinking about the games. I don't know if you've ever played Fallout before.
I have not.
I'm pretty sure you know the premise of it.
Is that the one with the zombie apocalypse?
It's a nuclear apocalypse. Pretty much what happens is the Cold War. Everyone's like nuclear energy, and then it goes on to like 2077, I believe, and China gets tired of our shit, and China and Russia are a union, and America and Canada are like a union. We annex them. Pretty much what it is we were invading China, and we had a foothold, which as I mentioned in the current events episode, never gonna fucking happen. But again, pretty much what it is China said, we're tired of your shit, launched all their nukes, and we launched all our nukes, and fucking irradiated the shit out of the planet.
Yep.
Killed everything. So anyways, in Fallout, the method of trade is bartering. Say like a lot of the times, like I use, especially with Fallout 4, 38 ammo is fucking everywhere. I remember at one point in the game, I actually ended up building a fucking LMG for 38 ammo, just because I had so much of it, and it was like I was getting to a point where it was like one cap per round. But that was a way to trade. It's like, there's like this legendary item, okay? And I know this is completely hypothetical, but it does have some merit in real-world application. Legendary gun I want. I have all these arms that I don't fucking use to begin with, and some of them that are pretty much just a downgraded version of the weapon that I want. It's the idea that, you have something that I want, and I have something that I value less than I value that item.
Oh my gosh, there's a TV show based off of something like that. I don't remember what it was, but it was like that show where they started with something like very small and like kind of have very like little value by itself, but it was something sort of unique. And what they would do was that they would constantly up their trade in terms of like monetary value. Into something like highly valuable.
Right.
And I can't remember what the name of the show was. Barter Kings or something?
I have no idea what you're talking about.
No, there's a show based on that, and I can't remember what it was. But that was it. It was kind of like they were bartering, and they kept bartering up and up and up in terms of like U.S. dollar monetary value. But, I mean, it wasn't set in stone. It's more so like
it's all
what
subjective.
The experts would say it goes for type of shit. But that was the entire premise of the show. And so I guess, I would agree in certain cases. I think at some level that there is an option to barter for something in most cases, from my understanding. I'm going to try and find it.
And also, speaking of bartering, there is the whole thing of petrodollar that I remember you mentioned off mic that you might want to talk about. I don't know if you still want to go into that, or we're almost there.
We can. Yeah. It ties back to the current events episode, where
why does everything
Barter Kings? It was Barter Kings. Focusing on the thriving subculture of cashless trading. Yeah, you'd probably find that interesting.
I probably would.
So the fact that they've got an entire show off of it,
means that there is some merit to the bartering system.
Yeah, I would agree.
I know some people on the left do not like it, and I understand the idea why. Is because that means that someone would have to have something of value.
Well, we each value things differently, though.
Yeah. Well, yeah, exactly. And in the same regard is, I think like in this context, especially in a socialist context, is everyone already has their needs met. Everyone always has their food, their water, their shelter, their healthcare, whatever. All those needs are met in the context of a socialist anarchist society. So there's no easy way of just, how do I put this? There's no easy way of really needing to barter. There's no
There's no necessary...
I thought I just yeeted my fucking mic off the table there. I just moved the wind filter. Next thing you know, everything's like, oh, bye, bitch.
You wouldn't find bartering necessary if everyone's needs are already met.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
and then bartering is left for like people who want extra things, and obviously, in that there's still going to be like there's still going to be like luxury goods and shit being made for people.
I think part of the bottom line too is also I think what it changes from want to need.
Yes.
Because it was like you would say,
but
in terms of like thousand years ago, freaking mud huts, like whatever the standard of housing was today, like in terms of that kind of housing versus today's kind of housing, right. It's more so like, well, what would you say you need? Obviously, need back then doesn't mean the same thing as need today, and so I think over time it can change.
Right. And I feel like, society would be like, all right, well, it seems like everyone needs this, everyone wants this, so we could just probably, like all of us get together, make it, manufacture it, and then everyone gets one. All of us come together, put it together like as a community, and then, everyone takes what they need. The whole idea of to each
their own need,
their own need, and you know what I'm talking about.
I know the quote.
I know what I'm talking about. It's one of the most fucking quoted.
From each according to his ability, to each according to their own need.
Yeah. That's pretty much the whole idea of communism, is that everyone.
An argument against that is, of course, who decides what everyone needs, and then they're going to say, well, it's like, how are you going to determine that without a state? And if you say, well, it's democratically, in which case everyone has to get together in terms of vote,
right.
Then it's saying like the whole group essentially, collectively, forcibly, like owns everything and gets to decide how all those resources and everything get to be appropriated to everyone. And it's like, well, how does that functionally not be a state?
Right. So, anyway. So, and then the last thing that I feel like we should actually talk about is, now that I'm actually getting into it and looking at it and just seeing it on the fucking list, is the petrodollar, because I still want to fucking tee off on that for a little bit. Because for anyone who doesn't know, the petrodollar is it's what is it again?
So there's a little flow chart. It's basically a form of recycling between money flow and oil exporting.
So
it's kind of like a fractional reserve banking, where it's like creating
value from nothing.
Exactly. It's self-fulfilling, where you just keeps going and going and going until the system collapses from some other factor.
It's that when you said system collapse, and I was like, oh boy, sounds like an unforeseen consequence. But
well, isn't they always say like authoritarian empires only last an average of 200 years? It's something like that.
Something like that. It usually lasts until they run themselves into the ground, and people understand that their freedoms and liberties are
a tyranny, yeah.
Or until a bigger power comes by and eats them up, as in the case with the Russian Empire.
Oh yeah.
I mean, technically, a bigger power did come by and eat them up.
Mm-hmm. So the petrodollar recycling refers to the money reflows to the rest of the world that result from the used oil exporting countries, mainly OPEC countries, make of their oil receipts.
The reason why I kind of wanted to talk about this, especially under the context of currency, is pretty much what the petrodollar is. I believe it was Nixon that hooked us up on the petrodollar, and that's a fucking dumpster fire and a half right there, because Nixon. But it was pretty much, it's assigning a value to literally nothing. And if I remember correctly, the US dollar is pretty much a debt note. It's not currency, it's a debt note.
Yeah.
And it's all privately owned too. The Federal Reserve is not actually a government entity. It's private.
The
government pays them for their money.
This is where the ANCAP will say, well, no, in terms of functionality, it functions exactly as a government entity. And so calling it private is a bit disingenuous. But
it's not tax. It is taxpayer funded because the government funds them.
It's
but
not
it's not
legally a government entity.
Yes.
But it functions exactly as one.
So the U.S. Mint, actually, if I remember correctly, I've heard the U.S. Mint's actually illegal. So
U.S. Mint?
Yeah, U.S. Mint is because the Federal Reserve prints off all the money.
Yeah.
Not the U.S. Mint. So the U.S. Mint's actually fucking illegal. Like I remember I heard that somewhere, like back in the 1800s, they fucking made it illegal. But that was the whole part of central bank, and there was a whole fucking like thing about it. It's an Alice in Wonderland fucking thing, because once you go down that hole, you're going to be in there for a long time just studying shit like it's ties back into the whole thing of I don't like banks.
Private banks.
Yeah, I don't like private banks. I just don't like banks.
You don't like money in general.
I don't like money in general.
You feel like you can live without it, obviously.
Yeah. But I also don't like banks because they're a leech. They, a lot of times you have to pay them to hold on to your money. Fucking, I can find a shoebox at home and fucking do that.
I mean, you're paying like another human being or group of human beings to do it, and so therefore, if they want compensation for it.
That is true.
If you want them to hold it,
that is true.
They're fair in asking for something in return.
And the same light, there's something that has been going around. It's overdraft fees.
Oh, overdraft fees.
Where and this is very contentious.
Well, let me say this too. I have a very personal experience with that because me and my wife had a hard time at one point where. And we got it eventually with our cards in the bank. So basically, we got to the point where, with rent and everything and all of our utilities and expenses, it got to the point where the bank account went negative enough to where my check would literally just bounce back to zero.
Yeah.
And then I'd have to go back into debt until we switched banks.
Yeah.
And then I owe that bank debt now.
Yeah. So now I'm just curious. Were you and your wife both working at that time, or?
It was mostly just me.
Oh, okay. But you had a full-time job, though.
I had a full-time job, yes.
Okay. So that's kind of what I wanted to allude. You yourself, you were working. You were, providing for you and your wife. And as much all the stuff you did to try to provide for you and practically your family, and you ended up the bank penalized you for it. Pretty much. Would you say that the bank pretty much penalized you for it?
It was basically saying, yeah. So I can't remember how exactly it started. In terms of getting into debt the first time,
yeah,
because.
Like, I myself, I don't like the idea of debt. I don't like to fucking hate money, but...
Yeah, but obviously you can't be in debt if there is no money.
Yeah. I mean, you can. You can be indebted to someone, like you can owe them a favor or something like that.
That's not in a monetary sense.
That's not in monetary, yeah. And I feel like when someone's indebted monetarily, and especially in like this kind of society, it's a lot worse. Like, I'd rather be like, oh, I owe you one, than I owe you money. Because I owe you money is like, I owe you something of value. Whereas I owe you one could be just like, hey man, I'll get this next round. Or, hey man, I'll help you move. Or, it's something that
it's a social setting.
It's a social setting. Mm-hmm. And it's gotten to the point, actually, me and my friends, we don't fucking keep monetary track. Like, hey dude, can I can you
cover me? And
can you cover me like
you
this? And I'll cover you in the time. They're like, yeah, sure, whatever. I don't care. Because it gets to the point where fucking money is useless at this point. We're all good friends. We don't fucking care. We're just glad that, we're out, having a good time together. So most of the time, we don't even fucking care. Most of the time, we don't even ask for anything in return. It's like, no, I got you. Don't worry about it. I'm laid off, or my friend, one of my friends, who's actually currently laid off right now.
Yeah, actually, my wife, who quit her job and everything, she got another one.
Yeah.
Yeah, she had a coworker give her a fucking gift card to a restaurant.
Nice.
Just free, no charge and everything. I was like, wow, that's nice as hell.
Yeah. That's called class consciousness. So
right. So I mean,
but anyway, it's the whole idea that, I mean, you don't need currency to have any kind of value or any kind of trade in a society, especially in a stateless one. And the petrodollar just kind of assigns a value to nothing. It assigns the value to debt, which debt is...
I wouldn't say it's tied to nothing. It's tied to the oil and the force of the states holding up that oil. Yeah. But it's creating and inflating itself.
Yeah. It's controlled inflation, which is, it sounds good until you realize that we live in a very hyperinflated society.
Oh, everything is hyperinflated.
Yeah. So obviously it's not really fucking controlled now, is it?
I believe it's in 1913, $20 used to buy what? I'm sorry, $1 in 1913 buys what $20 buys today.
Yeah.
Something along that effects.
It's very inflated.
Yes. It's ridiculous.
So, but anyways, so
you think that's enough for this episode, or
I think that's enough for this episode. I kind of have to use the restroom, and I kind of want to get home soon. Okay. So I'm pretty sure you probably want to go to bed because I think you have work in the morning, don't you?
I do. Yeah.
Oh fuck! What time is it? It is 11:13. How do you feel?
I'm all right.
I'm pretty sure you'll be fine.
I don't work 2 jobs anymore, so I'm good.
Hallelujah, lucky bitch. But anyways, so that pretty much wraps up our episode on currency and economics.
There's a lot of things that we could probably be more specific into later episodes, and if you want us to expand on a topic, give us some feedback and let us know specifically what it is you want.
Yeah.
You guys want to hear something? You got to tell us.
Yeah, interact with us. We don't bite. We're not assholes. Only to each other sometimes, but I wouldn't even say that. But
all the time.
All the time. Fuck you, Dave.
Get out of my house.
Okay. Bye, bitch.
Bye, Felicia.
Bye, Felicia. But as I'm walking out, technically it's a condo.
It's not your fucking home.
It's
you
not
rent
a house.
Rent is theft.
You fucking rented. You
not a real anarchist.
But anyways, yeah. Just interact with us. That's one of the greatest things that I can honestly hope for out of all of this is just interaction.
Positive interaction.
Positive interaction. If you're going to be negative, actually, no, I do like some negative interaction. Well, then I can be a shitlord to people, and I love that. I'm just going to let you know if someone's giving a shit on the thing, and if I catch it before you do, all right, I'm going to have some fun.
All right, well, you're allowed to do whatever the fuck you want on the page.
Exactly.
As long as you say it's coming from you and not me.
I think they'll understand. Because I want to say we even have different typing patterns. Like usually when I want to be a shit eater, I'll just be a shit eater. But
that's true. If I'm being serious, I try to be more poetic, I guess, and specific. I don't know. It's just my style. All right. Anyway, guys, thanks for listening, and give us some feedback, and stay tuned for more content. Like I said, if you want something specific, let us know and tell us. All right, and criticize us, share us, do whatever you want with the content we provide.
Yep.
All right, thanks.
Have a good one. See you next month.
Mm-hmm.